Understanding James 3:15 from a medical perspective. In James 3:15, the Rotherham Emphasized Bible states, "This wisdom is not one from above, coming down, but is earthly, born of the soul, demoniacal." To understand this passage from a biblical medical perspective, it is important to delve into the nature of demons, sin, and their relationship to human physiology and psychology. The nature of demons. From a biblical medical perspective, the concept of demons should be understood through biblical interpretation and Greek etymology. The Greek term demon, daimonion, originally referred to a distribution of fortunes, whether good or bad. In ancient Greek culture, demons were not inherently evil, but were seen as intermediaries between gods and humans, influencing human affairs in various ways. The Greek father of medicine, Hippocrates, also contributed to this understanding by interpreting demons as physical illnesses. Hippocrates, often referred to as the father of medicine, proposed that diseases were caused by natural factors such as diet, lifestyle, and environmental influences rather than supernatural forces. His approach to medicine was revolutionary for its time and laid the foundation for modern medical science. Hippocrates' interpretation of what were traditionally considered demonic afflictions aligns with the biblical medical perspective. He believed that epilepsy, for instance, was a result of natural causes and should be treated as a medical condition rather than a supernatural phenomenon. This view is reflected in his famous work, On the Sacred Disease, where he argued that epilepsy had a natural cause and was not a divine or demonic punishment. By understanding demons as symbols of physical and mental conditions, the biblical medical perspective allows for a more nuanced interpretation of biblical texts. It recognizes that ancient descriptions of demonic possession often correspond to modern diagnoses of medical and psychological disorders. This perspective provides a bridge between ancient scriptural accounts and contemporary medical science, offering a coherent explanation that respects both historical context and modern knowledge. In the New Testament, however, demons are predominantly associated with misfortune or illness. Contrary to views of demons as supernatural entities, the biblical medical perspective holds that demons symbolize physical conditions such as epilepsy, schizophrenia, and blindness. This perspective aligns with modern medical understanding, which recognizes these conditions as having biological and psychological origins rather than supernatural causes. This interpretation reflects a harmonization of biblical texts with contemporary medical knowledge, emphasizing that what was once attributed to demons is now understood as conditions arising from natural physiological and neurological processes. The devil and sin. The biblical medical perspective perceives the devil not as a personal being, but as a personification of sin. Sin is considered the inherent human propensity to transgress divine laws, as well as the physical element of all animal nature, resulting in diseases, death, and eventual return to dust. Hebrews 2:14, Romans 8:3, Romans 5:12, Romans 6:23. This perspective is rooted in the understanding that sin emanates from the brain, the organ responsible for thought and decision-making processes. The brain, composed of flesh, produces the mind's thoughts through biochemical reactions. This carnal mind represents the sinful nature of human thinking, often described as sin in the flesh. The Bible supports this view, indicating that human nature, prone to sin, leads to various physical and mental ailments. Romans 8:6-10. The soul and the physical body. Understanding the soul, biblical insights, and scientific correlation. The concept of the soul in biblical texts frequently intersects with physical aspects of human existence. Examining key scriptures and integrating insights about human imperfection, decay, and blood can provide a comprehensive understanding of the soul in relation to the physical body, consciousness, and mortality. Notably, Psalm 1, Corinthians 15, verse 44, Leviticus 17:11, and James 3, verse 50 offer significant perspectives on this topic. 1 Corinthians 15:44 and the nature of the soul. 1 Corinthians 15:44 states, "It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body." The Greek terms used here, soma psychikon, soma psychikon, and soma pneumatikon, soma pneumatikon, contrast the natural body with the spiritual body. The term psychikon, derived from psyche, is often translated as soul. In this context, The natural body or soul refers to the physical, mortal aspect of human existence. The passage emphasizes that the soul, in this sense, is closely linked to the physical and mortal state of the body, implying its mortality and dependence on physical existence. Leviticus 17:11 and the role of blood. Leviticus 17:11 states, "For the soul, nefesh, of the flesh is in the blood, for it is the blood that makes atonement for the soul." Nefesh. The Hebrew term nefesh, often translated as soul, is derived from a root that means to breathe. This connection highlights the role of blood as essential for life, since blood carries oxygen necessary for breathing and cellular respiration. Modern medical science supports this view by confirming that blood's function of transporting oxygen is critical for maintaining cellular health and preventing decay. Thus, the biblical notion that the soul is tied to physical processes aligns with our understanding of blood's role in sustaining life. Human imperfection and the role of blood. The Bible portrays human imperfection as inherent in the physical constitution, linked to principles of decay and reproduction. This imperfection manifests through the aging and deterioration of the body. In this context, reproduction refers to the cellular processes of renewal and repair, not the generation of offspring. Blood plays a central role in these processes by delivering nutrients, removing waste, and supporting cellular repair. Cellular aging and decay, influenced by blood's functions, highlight the soul's connection to physical existence. Thus, blood's vital role in maintaining life and managing cellular health supports the biblical idea that the soul is intricately linked to the physical body. Integration and conclusion. Integrating insights from 1 Corinthians 15 verse 44 and Leviticus 17 verse 11 with the understanding of human imperfection and blood reveals a comprehensive view of the soul. The distinction between the natural and spiritual bodies in 1 Corinthians suggests that the soul is mortal and is an equivalent expression for the physical body. Leviticus ties the soul to blood and, by extension, to the oxygen it carries, reinforcing the connection between the soul and physical sustenance. The idea that human imperfection is tied to physical decay and cellular reproduction aligns with modern medical understanding of cellular aging and the role of blood. This connection supports the view that the soul, as depicted in these biblical texts, is fundamentally related to the physical body and its processes. Therefore, the soul, in this context, is mortal, and consciousness ceases with death, consistent with both biblical teachings and scientific observations. Here is the revised version with grammatical corrections. James 3:15 and the physical manifestation of wisdom. James 3:15, as rendered in the Rotherham Emphasized Bible, states, "This wisdom is not one from above coming down, but is earthly, born of the soul, demoniacal." This passage describes certain types of wisdom as born of the soul and demoniacal, suggesting a connection between physical ailments, mental disorders, and sin. From a biblical medical perspective, the term demoniacal could be interpreted as referring to physical and mental conditions arising from the body's natural, sinful state. This perspective implies that sin manifests physically through cellular decay and mental disturbances. In this view, the soul's imperfections contribute to physical and psychological conditions, reflecting the broader concept of human frailty as described in biblical texts. In summary, the biblical portrayal of the soul, when combined with scientific understanding, suggests that the soul is closely tied to the physical body and its processes. This view aligns with the idea that the soul, as depicted in these texts, is mortal, and that consciousness ceases with death. Additionally, the notion of wisdom being born of the soul and associated with physical and mental disorders highlights the interconnectedness of spiritual and physical health in biblical thought. Demons as physical and mental ailments. From a biblical medical perspective, demons are essentially the physical and mental illnesses that arise due to the sinful nature of the flesh. For example, 1. Epilepsy. Historically seen as demonic possession, epilepsy is now understood as a neurological disorder caused by abnormal electrical activity in the brain. 2. Schizophrenia. Once attributed to demonic influences, schizophrenia is recognized as a complex mental health condition involving biochemical imbalances and abnormalities in brain structure. In Mark 9:17-27, for instance, Jesus heals a boy with what is described as a dumb spirit, which today might be understood as a form of epilepsy. From the biblical medical perspective, Jesus' healing acts are viewed as compassionate responses to human suffering, rather than confrontations with supernatural evil beings. These examples illustrate how ancient perceptions of demonic possession correlate with modern medical understandings of disease. Demons as false teachings. Beyond physical illnesses, demons also symbolize false teachings and deceptive ideologies. In 1 Timothy 4:1, Paul warns that some will give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. This aligns with the biblical teaching that demons can personify erroneous beliefs that lead people away from the truth of the gospel. In James 3:15, the Rotherham Emphasized Bible describes a kind of wisdom that is earthly, born of the soul, demoniacal, emphasizing its origin in human nature rather than divine truth. This aligns with the medical perspective that demons symbolize not only physical illnesses, but also false teachings and deceptive ideologies. Such wisdom, being earthly and demoniacal, leads people away from the truth of the gospel, reinforcing the idea that false doctrines arise from the flawed, sinful nature of humanity. Here is the revised version with improved grammar and clarity. Understanding demons born of the soul. 1. Soul as the physical body. According to 1 Corinthians 15:44 and other biblical texts, the soul, psyche, in the scriptural sense refers to the physical body. This view aligns with the biblical medical perspective, which holds that the soul is not an immaterial entity, but the living physical aspect of human beings. 2. Sin and the physical body. In the biblical medical perspective, sin is perceived as the inherent propensity in human nature that leads to moral and physical deterioration. This sinful nature, manifested through the carnal mind, the thinking of the flesh, causes various physical ailments and mental disorders. 3. Demons as symbolic of physical illness. Demons, in this context, symbolize the physical and mental conditions that arise due to sin. These conditions include diseases like epilepsy and schizophrenia, which were historically attributed to demonic forces, but are now understood as natural phenomena with physiological underpinnings. 4. Connection between soul and demons. Since the soul is the physical body in biblical terminology, the phrase demons born of the soul can be interpreted to mean that these ailments, demons, are a direct result of the sinful condition of the body, soul. Essentially, because sin affects the body and mind, the resultant illnesses and disorders are metaphorically born of or originate from this corrupted state. 5. Symbolic representation. Additionally, the notion that demons represent false teachings ties back to the idea that sin and incorrect thinking can lead individuals away from truth, causing spiritual and psychological turmoil. This symbolic aspect underscores how sin's impact on the mind can lead to both physical ailments and misguided beliefs. Summary. In conclusion, demons born of the soul reflects the biblical medical perspective that physical and mental disorders, demons, arise from the sinful nature of the human body, soul. This interpretation integrates the concept of the soul as the physical body with the impact of sin on human health and spirituality. The phrase metaphorically illustrates how the corruption of human nature leads to various forms of suffering and false teachings. Conclusion. In summary, the biblical medical perspective interprets demons as personifications of physical and mental illnesses caused by the inherent sinfulness of human nature. Sin, emerging from the brain's carnal thoughts, manifests in diseases and erroneous teachings. By understanding demons and sin in this context, we gain insight into the intricate relationship between the physical body, the mind, and spiritual well-being. This holistic approach underscores the necessity of aligning one's thoughts and actions with divine principles to mitigate the effects of sin and its manifestations.